It was the perfect winter to tap a tree. Each year, it seems that tapping maple trees has started earlier in the period of time to change it has changed, so we didn't want to miss a moment. We went up on a cold but beautiful, clear, sunny day, 47 miles to Westmoreland Sanctuary, to a place where I volunteered as a kid. Here, they still do old-fashioned maple syrup and maple sugaring. We met with Steve, the executive director, who helped us with the old-school way to tap the trees, make the syrup, and pick out the best sugar maple in the sanctuary. With Steve's help, he explained to us the things that we had to review. So first, we had to make sure that we had a manual hand drill, then a spile, and then a hammer and an old school metal bucket. Steve explained to us that at a later date, he would collect the sap along with the sap from other trees and combine them all to then make maple syrup. I'll discuss this in the next video, but the goal was to acquire at least 40 gallons to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. Next, we started with picking out the best tree. The first thing we looked for was sunlight, trees standing tall, and spaced out. This would yield the most sap in the shortest amount of time. Then we looked for trees with opposite branching. Once we found that, we realized we had a sugar maple, which luckily is the only tree in this particular area. As Steve explains, you were saying the sap.
So yeah, the sap is that the tree made last year via photosynthesis. It stores mainly in the roots. And so now, as the days get warm and the nights get cold, and the pressure changes in the sap wood, all the kind of like the plumbing, as the sap starts flowing up, and it's going to go out to the branches and make the little buds, which have the little baby leaves in them, start to grow. But it also kind of goes back down when it gets cold at night. So this is the time when it's really going back and forth, and this is the time when we really want to capture that sugary sap. And once it gets warm in the nighttime, above freezing regularly at night, it just stays up there and grows the leaves. It doesn't kind of go back and forth. It also changes its chemistry a little bit to become less sugary. It doesn't have much sugar to begin with, so we can't have less.
Oh wow, so it's not sugary.
It's not sugary, no. It's only about 2 to 3% sugar normally.
Wow.
Yeah. And to make syrup, you need 65% sugar.
Holy cow. Yeah. And that's why it has to get evaporated, and that's why there's this whole process.
That's why it's so expensive. Because to do that much evaporation takes an incredible amount of fuel to cook, to cook with that.
We talked about local flora and the birds and the history of the area. And then Steve explained a little bit more about the history of maple sugaring and helped us with the process to tap the tree.
Drill with this. Now, Native Americans would break a branch, or sometimes they would just chop a little hole into the tree. But then farmers, if they had some money, they could use some specialized tools like this.
Wow.
And normally you want to go on the sunny side of the tree. And you want to avoid holes from other years. So you can see there's holes here from other years. And those will cause, those probably, just like us, have a little scar tissue. So you want to avoid above or below those holes. There's one there. Oh, that one's really high. So I probably want to go, this may be a really, really old hole. But if it's that old, it might not affect us. Because the tree grows from the outside out. So the new wood is put on right underneath the bark here. The wood in the middle is the oldest wood, and that's usually doesn't have very much happening. It's usually just for support. It doesn't have any sap flowing in it or anything like that.
So then we picked a spot and I began drilling into it. You want to drill 2 to 3 inches into the tree, and that will actually give you just enough to start being able to see the sap dripping out. So as you can see, I was drilling. It's an old school drill, and then you can see here the hole, once it's made, the sap just started pouring out. It was absolutely amazing and really beautiful. So the next step was to insert the spile. You see there my daughter. She's inserting the spile into the tree. into the hole that we created. And then Steve gives her the tools to really push it in, which is a hammer. She hammers it in, and the point of doing this is that the bucket to collect the sap is actually going to be hung on a hook that's on the spile. This is the old school way of doing it, and you want it to be secure so that the flow during the day when it's warm is really fluid. The only thing left to do before putting the bucket on was to actually taste the sap. That's so cool. Look, it just came out. How cool is that?
So you can try this. It just takes longer for this one to filter. We wait a long time to
Water.
Yeah.
And finally, the time arrived to attach the bucket to a little hook under the spile so that we could collect the sap and come back in a few weeks to make the maple syrup.